Our subject this evening is Elijah the provider, exhorting you men, all of us, to provide as Elijah provided. As we examine the life of the great prophet Elijah, we see few but very dramatic chapters of his life. There is, of course, his confrontation with the prophets of Baal, so dramatically and beautifully presented here in the sanctuary, thanks to Father Bear. But there are other scenes of his life as well. There is his conversation with the widow and with her son, the providing of this woman with food. There is the experience of God on the mountaintop in the silence, still small voice. And there is the selection of Elisha, the successor of Elijah. This dramatic choice of this young man to take up the mantle, quite literally, of Elijah and to be the prophet of God in a dark and difficult time. And so I want to focus this evening in this brief fervorino in how Elijah provides assurance, clarity, and a future. Elijah provides assurance to the widow, clarity to the Israelites, and a future to Elisha. As you know, when Elijah encounters the poor widow in a time of famine, the response of the widow was quite reasonable when Elijah asks her for food. Provide me something to eat. And the widow says, I have nothing. I have nothing for myself, nothing for my son. If I make you anything, it will rob us of the one extra day that we were going to live. You all may remember the words of the poor widow. I was just about to make my son a cake, after which we will die. But Elijah, with the assurance of a prophet, a man who knows the power of God, demands of the woman, no, you will make something for me now, and the Lord will provide you life, and indeed will provide you all that you need, right up until the rain falls from the sky for both you and your son. And indeed, God does. Elijah provides to the widow an assurance that God will be faithful, an assurance that God is trustworthy. And my dear brothers, we ourselves must also provide, certainly our families, but also one another, assurances. We must provide assurances to each other. How do we do this? By being trustworthy ourselves, by doing what we say we are going to do, by not promising things that we can't fulfill, by also striving to control our emotions, not being moody, not making our families or our wives or our brothers question themselves, now, who am I going to get tonight? Who am I going to get today? We provide assurance by our steadiness, by our faithfulness, by our trustworthiness, by our fidelity in small matters. We provide assurance as Elijah provided assurance to the widow. Elijah certainly provides clarity to the Israelites. You all know that the Israelites, besieged by paganism, besieged by error, terrorized by the prophets of Baal, Elijah, the one man of God, stands up to them and provides liberation. He provides clarity to the Israelites about who the true and living God is and what is expected of the followers of the true and living God. Do we provide clarity to our family and to our brothers by our own lives? Clarity about who we are. Who am I? What do I stand for? Clarity by our commitment to prayer, The world and our families must know that we are men of prayer, faltering though we may be. Prayer must matter to us. This provides clarity. What we watch on television, this also must provide clarity to our family and to the world and to our brothers. Our habits, our leisure, how we speak, all of these ways we provide clarity to those who know us, especially, again, I emphasize, to our own families, but also to one another as brothers. Does my life have a clarity about it? Or is it fractured? Is it disintegrated? Elijah provides to Elisha, the young man, a future. He gives to him his own mantle. And so too, my dear brothers, we are called to provide certainly to our sons and to our grandchildren and to our daughters and to our granddaughters. We're called to provide for them a mentoring of life. We're called to provide for them a future by instilling within them the virtues that Christians and citizens both must foster. I would also encourage all of those who do not have families to take it upon yourself to find ways to mentor not only younger brothers in the Lord, but also to walk with one another. Now, you may think to yourself, there's not much I can offer. I myself am struggling. I myself perhaps have just returned to the faith. What can I do to mentor a fellow believer? By challenging us, by calling one another to account, by being willing to challenge and to build up, both coming from love, to mentor one another, just as Elijah mentors, in a very dramatic and brief way, Elisha. We also must see our life of faith not only as our own, but something to be shared, something to be given to others. Elijah provides assurance to the widow. Let us provide assurances by our life, a stability of life. Let us provide clarity as Elijah provided clarity to the Israelites, clarity by how we pray, clarity by what we do in our leisure time. Elijah provided Elisha a future, an identity. So too, let us provide our children a future by raising them up in the Lord and by challenging one another, brothers all.